The story opens by introducing a young man named John, a streamer, a content creator who often does digital live broadcasts. In his opening broadcast, John is discussing the disappearance of two teenagers who had previously appeared in an early video. It was discovered that they disappeared while filming an exploratory video in an abandoned building, the former Ganjiam Psychiatric Hospital, a place known for its eeriness and ranked as the 7th creepiest location in the world. As a content creator who focuses on mystical themes, John had the intention of live streaming from the hospital. His goal is to prove whether the place is really inhabited by supernatural entities as has been rumored. In this search, John was not alone. He invited his production team and 3 volunteers, who are loyal followers of his channel, to participate in exploring Ganjiam Mental Hospital.
상대상 미팅했대.
그러게. 와.
그거 뭐 하는 거예요?
다큐멘터리 찍는 거예요.
While on the way to the location, John shared a little information about the hospital's creepy background. According to rumors, the head of the hospital is said to have massacred all of his patients before taking his own life. The exact motive behind his actions is unknown, but the incident was the main reason the hospital was permanently closed. Another creepy rumor mentions a room numbered 420. It is believed that anyone who dares to enter the room will be subject to a mysterious curse. Apart from creating content, they also considered this trip as an opportunity to take a vacation and have fun.
너 가서 적이 없었잖아. 저 기절하지 마.
This was seen when one of the team members flew a drone and visited a water park in the surrounding area before heading to the main location. A few hours later, they finally arrived at the hospital area located near a remote village that looked almost uninhabited. As the main access road was closed, John and his group were forced to take a detour through the back of the building. They had now reached the forest area located behind the hospital, a place that was clearly far away from crowds and human activity. After walking for a few minutes, John managed to find a flat area suitable for setting up a tent, which would also serve as the main control post for all their live streaming activities that night. Before starting the full broadcast, John instructed 2 team members to install CCTV cameras in various corners of the hospital. The goal was clear so that they could get more visuals with different angles and of course a more optimized picture quality. Moments after the 2 members returned to the tent, they began preparing instant noodles for dinner. At this point, the atmosphere was still relaxed. They were all still able to have a good laugh, because to them, this was all just part of the content creation that had been designed, a combination of entertainment and an atmosphere of artificial horror. After dinner, the 3 main team members and 3 volunteers were fitted with GoPro cameras. These cameras would capture everything they did, including what they saw and their facial expressions, as an important element in establishing the feel of the evening's exploratory content. It was time for the live broadcast to begin. John remains in the tent as the main operator, responsible for monitoring the incoming feeds and ensuring a stable internet connection throughout the process. On the way to the main building, one of the team members, let's call him Samsel, accidentally found an unknown piece of white female underwear. In a joking manner, Samsel then tied the object to a nearby tree branch. Arriving in front of the hospital building, Samsel and his friends started the opening session of the live streaming by preparing an opening narration, complete with suspenseful background music to add a dramatic effect to the atmosphere. As they entered the building, one of the female volunteers named Charlotte placed a bowl of water, which is believed to be used to capture the presence of supernatural energy if the water surface is shaken.
성수를 그릇에 담고 있는데요.
체험에 앞서 방송 순서를 간략히 설명해
It wasn't long before there was the sound of a door slamming loudly, resembling a classic horror phenomenon common in mystical stories. Driven by curiosity, they immediately went to the room where the sound came from to investigate. Inside the room, they found a photo of a woman believed to be the head of the hospital, posing with patients. In addition, there were also several award photos that showed that the hospital had won various awards, one of which even came from the president directly.
승우야 멘트
수업 멘트로죠.
어디를 보고 있는 거야? 딴 데 보고 있어 수영 있습니다
대통령. 아 아빠도 대통령이야?
독서하는 구미라고
야 샬롯.
The tension escalates when they are startled by a hole in the roof, where a wig is seen hanging as if swaying in the wind. In the middle of the situation, as one of the team members was speaking on camera, the door behind him slowly closed on its own, and the incident was caught on camera with no one touching it.
체험에 앞서 방송 순서를 간략히 설명해 드릴게요.
To save exploration time, John in the control tent instructed the team to split into 3 groups. Charlotte, paired with Lisa, was assigned to the laboratory and medicine storage room. Samsel and Yuli were directed to the bathing room, while the other 2 members continued their search to the main hallway for further exploration.
이것에서 그랬던 것처럼 이것에도 기념으로 제 시그니처를 남겼는데요.
실험실입니다, 여러분.
Arriving in the laboratory area, Charlotte and Lisa found dozens of medicine bottles scattered around, as well as a mysterious doll stored in an old glass cabinet. While exploring further, Charlotte accidentally dropped a glass bottle containing a chicken carcass submerged in rotting water, possibly having rotted there for years. A pungent odor immediately spread in the room.
저 일단 여기 나가겠습니다. 나가자.
Meanwhile, Samsel and Yuli had reached the bathroom area, whose condition was no less creepy. Not because of supernatural activity, but rather because of the dirt and pungent smell that enveloped the room due to being left neglected for a long time. When Samsel enters the warm bath, he sneaks behind the plastic curtain and surprises Yuli with a sudden scream, which turns out to be a typical Samsel joke.
자 3층 됐고 4층 지연이 샬롯 스탠바이.
On the other hand, Charlotte and Lisa arrived at the most anticipated location, room 420, the most famous and most feared room in the hospital. Lisa mentioned that the door to this room was very difficult to open. Even one of the team members who tried was overwhelmed and almost gave up trying to open it. The tense aura was even more intense in front of this room. After the team came back together, they agreed to take things to the extreme, to give the audience a more intense experience. Their idea? Performing a seance ritual. They began preparing various supernatural props and trinkets, which would be installed in one of the hospital rooms as the main location of the ritual. The ritual begins. They prepare various mystical paraphernalia, including small bells tied with red thread, shaped like spider webs, hanging in the center of the room as the centerpiece of the seance. Other paraphernalia are equally unique: candles, incense, papers containing mantras. Yuli is believed to lead the ritual. Starting by burning the spell paper while reciting special prayers. Meanwhile, the live stream's viewership continued to soar, reaching 80,000 live viewers, an unusually large number for a broadcast of this size. As everyone was waiting for the results of the ritual, the candle flame suddenly moved on its own, then went out in an instant, and the bell rang without anyone touching it. Spontaneously, all the ritual participants screamed and ran away in fear. However, for careful viewers, the tense incident turned out to be just part of the scenario prepared by June and 2 team members who conspired to create dramatic effects to boost audience numbers.
대장.
100만 찍느냐 마냐 지금부터 달렸어.
아니 근데 아까 보니까
완전 대박.
Ironically, when June was alone in the control tent, he experienced a real mystical event, not a fabrication. The tent light suddenly went out, and to his surprise, the stove turned on by itself. A panicked June went outside to check the surroundings, but went back in after the camera monitor came back on. However, a strange feeling began to haunt him as a strong gust of cold wind blew through, making his hair stand on end. He was transfixed for a few moments before reorganizing the search. Back inside the building, the team members had regained their composure and were ready to continue their exploration. They agreed to return to the laboratory that Charlotte and Lisa had previously visited. Once there, Charlotte was immediately stunned. The strange doll she had seen in the glass cabinet had now moved to the top of the wall shelf, without anyone having touched it. One of the crew, Kim, tried to hold the doll. But before he could speak, Charlotte immediately screamed in fear and ordered Kim to immediately put it back. While Charlotte was panicking, June was getting excited. Seeing the number of viewers continue to rise, he even told Kim to explain the origin of the doll in order to maintain the intensity of the broadcast.
제가 들고 있는 이 인형이 보이십니까? 40년 전 환자가 들고 있던 인형이에요.
나 씨발.
For June, the scarier it is, the more interesting it is, because that means more viewers will stick around until the end. Charlotte, who was still looking pale and scared, finally confessed that she has indigo blood, and because of that, she could feel the negative energy from the doll that Kim had touched. According to her, the doll was a cursed object that should not be touched carelessly. Hearing that, June, who realized that the team's mental state was starting to suffer, immediately took action. He calmed Carlo, who began to look restless and wanted to run away from the set.
다들 여기서 끝내자고 하면 근데 그럼 여태까지 잘해온 게 너무 아깝잖아.
알겠어.
To maintain the team's cohesiveness and focus, June then instructed all members not to touch any objects in the asylum building, and asked them to follow all of Charlotte's instructions as a precaution. After that, June gave them a new task. He told Samsel and Yuli to go upstairs, to room 420, and bring a grinder to open the locked door. Meanwhile, Charlotte, Lisa, Kim, and one other member named Javi were tasked with continuing the search to unexplored parts of the building.
1층 내고 나면 3, 4층은 짧게 갈 테니. 큐.
The four then arrived at a room full of hollowed-out wooden boxes, similar to isolation chests that might once have been used to hold severely mentally ill patients. This is where Kim got into the act again, trying to make the atmosphere more dramatic by inserting her hand into one of the boxes while pretending to be pulled by something from inside. The action made the audience excited, but Charlotte and Lisa were even more panicked. Instead of stopping, Kim was about to repeat the act, provoking a small commotion between herself and Charlotte, who was really uncomfortable. Seeing the tension rising, Lisa tried to intervene and offered to prove that nothing was wrong by putting her own hand into the box. Unfortunately, when Lisa pulled her hand back out, there was a scratch-like wound on the skin of her arm, real and bloody. Shortly after, the wooden door of the room opens on its own with a rattling sound, adding to the tension and strangeness they are experiencing. Seeing all that, Charlotte and Lisa decided to give up and immediately return to the tent, no longer able to withstand the increasingly real fear. Javi, who initially thought it was all just entertainment, had a change of heart and decided to catch up with them, especially when he saw that the number of live stream viewers had reached 300,000, a fantastic number that June didn't want to lose momentum with the departure of his two main members. But now, even Kim and Javi, who had been the most relaxed in the beginning, began to feel truly horrified, especially after seeing the scratch marks on Lisa's arm.
그러니까
다 막혀있는데 바람이 어떻게 들어와?
씨발 누구 마음대로 그만해! 나도 그게 지금 이상해서 계속 영상 돌려보는 중인데.
씨발 지하에 사방이.
The atmosphere changes from mere drama to genuine fear felt by everyone there. When Lotte's scarf suddenly appears to float in the air on its own, the atmosphere becomes even more tense. But June, who is ambitious and doesn't want to lose hundreds of thousands of viewers, tries to convince Kim and Javi that all the events just now are just ordinary phenomena that can be explained logically. He said that maybe the scarf was just blown away by the wind, and the scratches on Lisa's arm could have been caused by scratches from the wood chips in the box.
영상 돌려보는 중인데
여기 뭐 있는 거 같아. 줄라 이상해 그만하자.
지금 조회수가 얼마인 줄 알아? 야 30만이 넘었어.
After calming Kim and Javi down, June became even more curious. He began to open and examine one by one the video footage they had taken during their exploration. However, while browsing through a recording of them gathered in one room, June noticed a strange anomaly. The number of people in the recording was not 6, but 7. In fact, when counted together with the cameraman, they were only 6 in total. Who was the 7th person in the video? Before he could think further, the lights suddenly went out again, leaving June annoyed and frustrated. But before long, the monitor came back on, showing the faces of Kim and Javi, who now came with a new request. They wanted an extra paycheck if June insisted on continuing the live broadcast that night.
20%씩 더 줄게.
June agreed to the request, and Kim and Javi went back into the room previously filled with mysterious wooden boxes. This time, however, the strangeness they experience is far more terrifying. The wheels in the room moved on their own for no reason, leaving Kim frozen in fear. Shortly after, the large door behind them closed violently, and all the items in the room suddenly flew and stuck to the ceiling, as if struck by a supernatural wind. One of the objects even hit Javi's body, making him faint on the spot. The panicked Kim tried to resuscitate him, but the situation became even more chaotic and tense. Meanwhile, we leave Kim and Javi for a moment, and turn to Charlotte and Lisa, who appear to have just exited the building. The two of them walk down the path to the tent, but after a few minutes of walking, they feel something is wrong. The path they were on felt circular, like it was taking them back to the same place. Until finally, when they stopped to rest for a moment, Charlotte found some strange objects that she had previously seen in the lab, such as medicine bottles and chicken carcasses. At that moment, Lisa suddenly fell silent, and the look in her eyes changed. She stood stiff as a man possessed, and it seemed that something invisible had taken hold of her. Charlotte ran with all her might, panicked and frightened, until she finally arrived at the tent area where June was. But strangely, as soon as she entered the tent, the atmosphere immediately changed drastically. Without knowing how, Charlotte was now back inside the building, and from a distance, she saw Lisa standing behind her, not moving an inch. But what made Charlotte's heart almost stop was when she saw a strange figure standing facing her, like a mental hospital patient who had just finished surgery, his body full of wounds and very creepy. At the same time, Javi, who had previously fainted, had regained consciousness. Without wasting time, he immediately ran upstairs, where Samsel and Yuli were still trying to pry open the door to room 420. When he met them, Javi asked in a firm tone that they immediately leave the building. But their intention to escape was hampered because June, who was not willing to lose the audience, tried to contact them. Unfortunately, his attempt failed. Meanwhile, the number of viewers had reached 990,000, just a few more to reach 1 million viewers. Suddenly, a ping-pong ball appeared out of nowhere, hurtling towards them, followed by Charlotte's screams coming from behind the door of room 420. A panicked Yuli wanted to run away alone, but he was stopped in his tracks when the lights flickered on their own and the door to room 420 opened slowly on its own. Without thinking, the three of them entered the room, and there they made a big mistake. Inside, there was no Charlotte, and even more terrifying, the room had no exit at all. They were completely trapped in room 420. The horror increased when they noticed a strange puddle of water not on the floor, but hanging from the ceiling. Then, suddenly a hand appeared and shot out very quickly, as if to grab their faces. Panicked and wanting to see more clearly what was around, Javi activated the night vision mode on his camera. And that's where they saw the figures of the mental hospital patients, who seemed to be the victims of this brutal execution in room 420. Shortly after that, Samsel and Yuli's eyes began to turn jet black, just like what happened to Lisa earlier. Now, only Javi remained in full consciousness, alone, trapped in a room with no way out, surrounded by creatures from another world. Now, all that was left was June himself, confused because the rest of his team could not be contacted at all. Despite the chaotic situation, June insisted on continuing the live stream, in order to maintain his viewership, which had almost reached its highest point. Recklessly, June decided to follow his team into the building, turning on a drone to monitor the situation from the air. As he arrived in front of the haunted building, his eyes fell on something behind the window of room 420. It wasn't clear what it was, but it was enough to make June curious and rush up to the floor. Upon arriving at room 420, the room appeared to be unoccupied. However, when June got closer to the window and looked down, he got goosebumps because down there, he saw himself operating the drone, just like he did a few minutes ago. That's when the truth begins to unfold. The figure she saw moving through the window earlier turns out to be herself. A creepy time loop that cannot be explained logically. June begins to realize that his decision to continue live streaming was a fatal mistake. Slowly, June turned his camera backwards, curious about what was behind his body. Now, Kim was the only one left, waking up from his stupor to find himself sitting on a wheelchair, like a patient in a mental hospital. Unable to resist, Kim's body is pushed into room 420, following the fate of his other friends. Finally, we see the monitors in the control room still on, but the viewers are starting to leave the live stream. Many of them thought all of this was just acting or CGI effects. The story teaches us not to get caught up in excessive ambition or pursue popularity in the wrong way, like June did, who was too focused on the audience and ignored the safety of his team. Bad things can happen when we are too self-centered, even in forms that defy logic. Life is not always about entertainment, but also about choosing what is truly important and worthwhile, and not underestimating the power of invisible things that can change everything. That's all from us. Don't miss our videos, and see you in the next one.